Welcome to the football show ahead of the Old Firm derby, Rangers against Celtic. On the 2nd of January 1971, 66 fans went to watch Rangers against Celtic and never returned to their families. It is one of the biggest disasters, tragedies and sad events in Scottish football. 66 died, 140 were injured, and the Ibrox disaster is 50 years old today and will be remembered by both clubs on a very sad day for many of the families who look back at that tragedy. Football is not more important than life or death, and today it's all put into perspective. It is only a game of football. We are certainly going to enjoy the build up to the game. Hopefully you can participate with us live on Facebook and on YouTube and on Twitter as well. It is the football show in PLZ Soccer. I'm Peter Martin, Hugh McDonald, Darren Jackson and Gabriel Antoniazzi join me here today. And out there at Ibrox, all silent because, quite simply, Gabriel, there are no fans at the game, but there will be people there to pay their respects to the 66 who tragically lost their lives.
Yes, of course, no fans at the stadium today as we continue this battle with coronavirus, but there are plenty of people here with wreaths and flags and banners here to lay down their respects, pay their respects outside the John Gray statue at the front of the stadium. They'll all do that, but after that, it is all focused on the game. 12:30 kicks off on the biggest game of the Premiership season so far. Celtic continue their quest of 10 in a row. They're 16 points behind Rangers. It's a must-win today in the eyes of many, but when I spoke to manager Neil Lennon and vice-captain Callum McGregor, they said it was more of a must-not-lose. I'm not sure if you guys agree, but we'll have to wait and see what comes at 12:30.
Yeah, Gabriel is there at Ibrox. He'll be keeping us right up to date. The minute the teams are released, we'll be all over it. Of course, Hugh McDonald, so many pundits, so many journalists can look back with great sadness to 1971. It's Stairway 13 where the disaster happened. Quite simply, fans going down that stairway. At that time, it was the norm for a crush around football grounds. They didn't pay as much attention to safety as they should. And I'm not just talking about Rangers, I'm talking about every club. And Rangers had a couple of warnings prior to that. But 66 people losing their life was just, a disaster for the club and something that prompted them to change Ibrox Stadium.
Absolutely, a complete and utter disaster for Scottish life as well, Peter, because so many of us, even at the time, I was at the game, but safely away from any of the trouble. But I think most people of my generation, in fact, probably everybody of my generation, will have a story similar to the Ibrox disaster in terms of being in a crush and being and thought to be lucky to get out safely. I revisited the disaster over the last couple of weeks and talking to relatives of some of the victims and talking to Ian McCall, who is the works for the Founders Trail, Peter, and he's involved in refurbishing the graves, putting up plaques so the fans are still remembered. And then talking to the victim's family, Peter, it was desperately draining, because the 50 years on, this lives with them. This is very young people that died, mostly, and it's lived on with them. And every new year it comes back to visit them. Terrible times.
Yeah, absolutely, and rightly so. Both clubs will show their respect today, as they did on that day back in 1971. I can remember, pictures in black and white of Jock Stein helping as they were bringing the bodies onto the park. It was an absolute tragedy which affected the whole of Glasgow, and the BBC put together a fabulous documentary over the last week reflecting on 50 years since that tragedy. Listen, today we love our football in Scotland. It is the national sport that we adore. This game is viewed all across the world with a certain amount of interest, certainly not at times on the great football, but the spectacle and the rivalry that has emerged from Rangers against Celtic. Some of it positive, some of it not so positive, as you are very well aware. But the football itself has got everything at stake for us, because quite simply, Rangers are at the top of the table. They've got a 16-point advantage. Celtic have 3 games in hand. And I put it to you, Darren Jackson, it's win or bust for Celtic.
I think it is. I think they need to win, Peter. See if Rangers' confidence is massive just now for the way they're playing. But they look at the table. Everybody looks at the table. It's 16 points. If Celtic had played the 3 games and it was down to 7 points, is it 7 points? It wouldn't have. I don't think they would probably be as confident. But they're going into it. They're playing well. Listen, Celtic are going into it as well, Peter. They've managed to 4 clean sheets, which Celtic will always score goals, I think. But the clean sheets was the problem, and the defence was the problem. But they've tightened that up. But I do think today, I've listened to Neil getting interviewed. I've listened to the other players and saying it's a must not lose game. And I get where they're coming from, but if they're going to give themselves real confidence to go on and do this, I think they need to win today.
Well, interestingly enough, Hugh McDonald, everybody's talking about what Celtic need to do. For me, this whole season has been about what Rangers have done, because not only have they shown their dominance in the Old Firm games, I mean, they won the last one by 2-0, and that dominance was a fair reflection of what happened in the League Cup final, which they lost. But it's about what Rangers have done. He's transformed the side, Steven Gerrard. It's evolved. It's got stronger. It's got better. It's well organised. As I was looking this morning at the stats, they've conceded just 5 league goals, 17 clean sheets in 21 games, and they've only conceded 1 goal in 10. At Ibrox, 1 goal in 10 wins at Ibrox. It's some going for that defence as well, Hugh.
Absolutely. I mean, the turmoil at Celtic is kind of hidden. You know what's going on at Rangers, and we always try to make the point on this show that it's all very well looking at Celtic, but we've got to have a good. Rangers have to come under some scrutiny for what they've done, and it's been really remarkable, Peter, because the vast majority of the side now that look so imperious, certainly so dominant in the league, you know, were the same players that were losing in the Cup to Hearts and losing at home at Hamilton before COVID. So credit to Gerrard and Beale for reorganising the core of that side. And I think an interesting sidebar to it in an attacking sense would be at the beginning of the season with the I would say the uncertainty over Morelos, the actual age of Jermaine Defoe. You're looking at, you know, can they win the league with those two as their main strikers? Bringing in Roof, and now Itten is also been, but bringing in Roof has been a remarkable piece of work, because although he's been injured at times, his contribution in the league, Peter, has been, you know, very, very powerful. So allied with a defence that's not leaking, to, you know, a centre forward that's technically very good and is scoring, it's been a great turnaround. But the Morelos thing is extraordinary, because nobody, you know, if you look at Morelos' record this year, nobody would have said, well, Rangers with this position, with the goal return that Morelos has given them, yet they've defied that completely.
Yeah, absolutely. And Gabriel, you've been watching Rangers on more than a few occasions. We'll look here at their forum guide, and you can talk us through, basically, you know, the dilemma has always been, can Morelos fire them to victory? But St Mirren apart, it's been other players that have been able to put that impressive run of form together for Rangers.
Yeah, interesting. Hugh talks about Kemar Roof there. It's 10 goals and 2 assists for him in the league. He's been an outstanding addition. He can easily play off the right, off the left, or as the number 9. He's been their standout attacking player so far. He'll be trying to get his first Old Firm goal today. We've just seen the 2 buses arrive behind me here at Ibrox Park. Celtic arriving first to a chorus of boos from some of the fans that are gathered before cheering for the Rangers bus that has just arrived. But a thing that is so interesting and so important to Rangers game is the security, the consistency. When we're looking at what we think the lineup will be today for the Gers, we're pretty sure on about 10 of the 11 selections. The only one that is perhaps a 50-50 is whether he goes for Helander or Barisic at centre-half. But the rest of the team really picks itself with Scott Arfield injured and Ryan Jack not fully fit. So you look at that, you know what you're going to get from Rangers. They control games, they don't concede goals. Whereas when you then look at Celtic, we don't know whether they're going to play a diamond in midfield, a 4-2-3-1, a 3-5-2, which they did in the last Old Firm. This is what we thought it might have been. Since then, there's been suggestions that perhaps it will be a 4-2-3-1 with David Turnbull and Ryan Christie out wide to keep it narrow. But we just don't know what it's going to be from Celtic, what Celtic will turn up, what players will they pick, what performance will they deliver. And that's the big difference for me.
Yeah, I think in the next 5 minutes we're about to find out. We're going to talk about Celtic in a moment, but here's what Steven Gerrard had to say about the build-up to this big game.
You know, since our setback in the Cup, the players have delivered 12 points from 12, scored 9 goals, conceded 1. So our reaction and response has been fantastic. So we go into this game confident, in a good place. Obviously, Celtic have won the last couple of games. I think it's against Hamilton, Ross County and Dundee. But they're playing Rangers tomorrow. It's a different challenge for them. We don't think of the pressure as a pressure. We think it as an opportunity. It's a big game. We're not going to try and play the fixture down, but at the same time, we've also got to just focus on the task in hand, the challenge, the game plan, what we need to do. We obviously are well aware of Celtic's strengths and weaknesses, and we need to make sure we give the players a game plan to go and execute and also defend in the best way we can. But in 2.5 years, I think you'll agree with me that things have changed. You know, the squad's grew, we've improved. We've had experiences and the journey that we've been on. We're in a much better place now. That's not to say that the challenge is not going to be tough and we don't respect the opposition and everything's going to be straightforward. It's not like that. These derby games are very challenging, they're very tough, good players on both sides. But for sure, in terms of the confidence and the belief and every single one of my players really looking forward to this fixture. It does feel different than the first one we faced.
Yeah, no surprise all the Rangers players are looking forward to it. It has to be said, though, Hughie does have the best player in Scotland this year, his captain, James Tavernier, and his captain himself says nothing will be decided today, win, lose or draw. I think he's obviously showing the same humility as his manager, but to go 19 points clear, Hugh, I think puts the tin lid on it.
Oh, absolutely. I think to remain at 16 points, I think a draw is not good enough for Celtic, and I'll say this for this reason. If you're looking at that press conference from Steven Gerrard as a journalist, Peter, I think you'll agree with this, that he's banging on about all the time about how confident his players are, how mindset's very good, how that result in Paisley going out the League Cup, that's not affected him. He's kept saying we've come back with 12 points, we've come back with 9 goals, we're on the front foot, and he's all the time talking up the confidence and the mental stability of his players. What Celtic have got to do today is not just get 3 points, but it's to put a dent in that stability. It's to say, right, we're after you now. We've reduced the deficit. We're going to put a doubt in your mind about how the season's going to play out. A draw doesn't do that. I think really in the back of all their minds, players at Ibrox today, and they might not admit it, it might be in the subconscious, but I bet if they walked away today, 1 each, 2 each, there's no dent in the lead. They go on, and I think they would take that. I honestly do. I think that's why I think it's arithmetically it's important that Celtic win, but I think emotionally and psychologically it's crucial.
Well, the point that Gabriel raised only moments ago, Darren, is a reflection of how good Rangers have been over the course of this season, because you can literally pick 10 out of that 11 for Rangers week in, week out. He's got a consistency in selection. And suddenly, as Gabriel mentioned there, Darren, we're in a situation where we're looking at the Celtic side thinking, who's he going to pick? How are they going to line up? Can he actually afford to pick a side that does not thwart the real danger that Rangers have on the flanks?
Yeah, without doubt, Peter. I mean, I think before, when you look at Arfield and Jack being out, they would have been worried about that. Morelos not scoring regular, they would have been worried about that. But the confidence, Hugh mentioned Roof and Gabby mentioned Roof before. I've always been impressed with him, but as a sort of 10, but he's adapted to his game and all that. And yeah, they're playing with confidence. And you're right, Peter. I've been racking my brain. I don't think they can. They've had success over the last few games, playing 4-4-2 with a diamond, but I don't think they can play the diamond with Rangers' major strengths being the two fullbacks, and it would give the two wide midfield players too much to do. I think they should go with two forwards. I think the two forwards are the best two forwards in Scotland when they play. But I think they need to worry about defensively. What's the best? Is it a 5? Is it a 4? I would like to see Ayer against Barisic, because I think he would really match up. I think physically he could cope with them. I think Laxalt does really well against do well against Tavernier. So, but it's just what they do in the middle. I do think they will play Sorrow. I do think Turnbull will play. But it's whether he goes two up front. I listened to Lenny's interview, and he was talking about as long as they don't get beat. Does that tell me that he's not really going to go with the two strikers? So we'll just have to wait and see. It's the Rangers. You could probably name, as you say, 10 out of 11 who's going to play for Rangers. Yeah. There's no doubt about that. But everyone, I don't think many people will get the formation right and the players right with Lenny's selection.
Well, we're only moments away from finding out what the selection is on both halves of the city as far as the manager, Steven Gerrard and Neil Lennon. Give us your thoughts and your predictions on the game. It's great to have your company here on Facebook, on YouTube, and of course on Twitter. It's the Football Show. Roughie not with us today, just feeling a little bit poorly, so we send our very best wishes to the big man. He'll be back with us for the new season. We've heard from Steven Gerrard in the Rangers camp. Let's hear what the Celtic manager Neil Lennon and some of his players have to say.
Well, you don't want to lose it. You want to get a positive result, either 3 points or a point. So we're not even contemplating losing the game. We're going in there with a positive frame of mind, and we have to play. We have to play a lot better than we did here in October, whenever it was. But we've got Christie, Edward, Griffiths, Turnbull, Sorrow. They're all available to play. So hopefully that'll give us a real spark going into this game.
They've been good. We don't expect kind of anything else every kind of season when we're right at the top. And we've obviously been so successful for the last couple of seasons that everyone's going to keep pushing us and they're going to try and get closer to our level. Like I said before, we're frustrated with the dip in form, but after that we've kind of come through it and now we look back to our best again.
I think so. I think it's the next game. It's the most important one for us. Like I said, this one was the most important. We had to win that. We go on Saturday. Obviously we will go and try and win the game. That's in our nature. That's in our DNA. So we understand it's an important game in terms of where the league's at. But I'm not going to put any sort of labels on it in terms of must-win games, because you can very easily see that one weekend can change the whole momentum of the league. So we've been here before. We're experienced in that sense that these games are just as important as the other 36. So. They're really important games, but like I said, we have to try and win it.
Well, let's go to Gabriel, because he will have the teams.
Yep, they've both just come out right now, and I can tell you that Rangers have gone 10 for 11 as we expect. The only change is that Balogun is in ahead of Hollander. Hollander started the last Old Firm game, but he's only played 90 minutes since that game in early October. So it's Balogun who partners Connor Goldson at centre-half, full-backs James Tavernier and Borna Barisic, Alan McGregor in goal, a midfield three of Glenn Kamara, Stephen Davis and Joe Aribo. Alfredo Morelos leads the line. He's not scored in 13 against Celtic. Can he break the duck today? We'll have to wait and see. Ryan Kent starts off the left. He scored twice in Old Firm derbies before. And Kemar Roof plays from the right. Now, Celtic, interestingly, have gone exactly as we expected, player for player. It's a 4-4-2 diamond. It will be Vasilis Barkas in goal, the number one. Lennon confirmed he would pick him ahead of Connor Hazard. He's gone Frimpong at right back with Beaton replacing the injured Christopher Julien at centre-half with Christopher Ayer. Laxalt starts at left back. He was dropped for the Scottish Cup final, but he gets the nod ahead of Greg Taylor. He's gone for the diamond in midfield with Sorrow at the base of it. That means captain Scott Brown will not start. Cal McGregor and Ryan Christie either side of him, with David Turnbull in the number 10 role. Turnbull's got 3 in his last 3. Up front, it's Odsonne Edouard and Lee Griffiths. Edouard has 6 goals in the Glasgow derby, and Griffiths isn't shy in these matches either. And as Darren said, he thinks these 2 strikers are the best in Scotland when they do play.
Well, I'm going to go to you first of all, Darren, on the Celtic side, which certainly, it's not so much a surprise, it's really a confirmation from Neil Lennon that he's happy with the way they're playing, with the style that he's got there. But I actually think, rather than the diamond outlook that Gabriel mentioned there, that we were all debating over the last 10 minutes, I actually think that he'll probably ask some of those players to do a different job when they don't have the ball, not necessarily the diamond, but something to counteract the threat of what Rangers are going to offer today.
Yeah, well, Peter, that's why you go to training to work on things, and there's no doubt they'll have worked on the diamond. I've said I didn't think they would go the diamond because it puts too much emphasis or too much hard work on the 2 midfield players. But they've obviously worked out a system that they're going to do, that someone will need to get right out to the fullbacks, because the fullbacks play very high and they're a threat when they get the forward. Their set plays, they're delivering to the box. So they've worked on it. And once they get up the pitch, are they confident enough to go one-on-one, Laxalt on Tavernier and Frimpong on Barisic? Are they confident that? So he set out his stall, his interview saying that we obviously want 3 points, a point would do, but I think he's gone playing the 2 strikers, he's gone for the 3 points, there's no doubt about it. And I'm delighted the 2 strikers are playing, because I think centre halves nowadays get away with a lot, only having to mark one striker. Now I do believe Roof's done very well. Morelos is a good player. I do believe the 2 of them are the best strikers, and they will put the 2 centre halves under severe pressure.
Well, no surprise that he didn't select his captain, Scott Brown. I think his appearances will be sporadic in certain games that he thinks he can come on and steady the ship, or just solidify it if they're in a commanding position. But Hugh, as I look at the overall picture here, we've already said win or bust. We've already all agreed that Celtic must win this game. I don't think a draw is any good. If Rangers win it, then, for me, I think the title's over anyway. I know that will upset a number of people. It's an opinion. But the other thing here that I think is at stake, Hugh, is Neil Lennon's position as manager. If this doesn't go according to plan, suddenly the Celtic board have to review the situation.
Absolutely. I mean, we all know that there's a great... so some people might not remember, it was a great sitcom where called Yes Minister. Whenever a minister made a big decision, the civil servants would say to him, "That's a very brave decision, Minister," and that would put them on the back. That would put them on the back foot, because people don't want to make brave decisions. People always want to make right decisions, obviously, but they don't want to make decisions that puts them, puts them at danger of losing their job or coming under criticism. Neil Lennon has absolutely gone for it today. I think this is a selection which actually reflects my views that this is a must-win game for Celtic. Whatever his rhetoric standing in front of the camera, this is a team that's specifically picked to go and win it. It's You've got to be careful of hyperbole, Peter, but it's almost a historic team selection, isn't it? I mean, if for people of looking about over the last 10 years of Celtic dominance, going to Ibrox and not playing Scott Brown, that is a change. That's revolutionary. I'm not saying it's the end of an era for Scott Brown, but it's definitely, he's moving into, shall we say, a different era. I think that's a huge decision to make. I think it's the right decision. Going 2 up front when a lot of managers nowadays, look upon that 2 centre forwards as outdated, is another huge decision. Again, I think it's the right decision. But all decisions, Peter, they all lie on that. It goes back to that Yes Minister thing. It all goes back to this afternoon at 2:30. The result tells you what the decisions are like. Celtic could play brilliantly, be unlucky if they get beat. Huge questions over them, huge questions over the managers.
Yeah, absolutely. And just for the benefit of everyone who's joined us on Facebook, don't forget you can like, share, and follow us. Subscribe on our YouTube channel, and of course to Twitter at PLZ Soccer. And if you download the app, you get all the news and all the unique video content at your fingertips. I would like to say on behalf of everyone at PLZ Soccer, Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Let's hope 2021 is a healthy one, a prosperous one for you, and a good one. And if you get the chance, spread the word, and you can join the football family here. We've got big plans, big programmes coming up for you in 2021. And of course, we're out there live at games. And Gabriel, once again, there at Ibrox, can go back over the big team news for Rangers and Celtic.
Yeah, interesting what Hugh's saying there. Start of a new year. Is it the start of a new era? No, Scott Brown is a massive call. Ismail Assoro has played and started in 5 of the last 6. And those 6 games have, of course, all been victories since the barren run of just 2 wins in 12 before that. Assoro's come into the team, as has David Turnbull, and it's really changed Celtic's fortune around. I think the reason that Lennon has changed to go to this 4-4-2 diamond is because, quite simply, Rangers have had Celtic's number in the last few derbies. If we look at the last 5, Rangers have won 3 of them. And then 2 that Celtic have won. One of them was the League Cup game. And if everyone is being honest, even Celtic fans would say that Rangers were the better side on that day. So you can say Rangers have had the better of 4 of the last 5. The one exception is, of course, the last one here, which was 2-0 to Celtic in October 2019. But I think Lennon's thought, right, they've got our number. We haven't tried this yet. Why don't we try something different? It will be interesting to see the battle against the fullbacks, because we know that's how Rangers like to play. They get Tavernier and Barisic high. They get balls into the box. They almost play as wingers. So that battle's going to be so interesting as well. But it is a massive call. No, Scott Brown. Just if Rangers do win today, it'll be the first time they've won home and away back-to-back in the league since 2006-2007, when incidentally they finished second.
Yep, it's a Steven Gerrard Rangers side that when you look back at his record, 4 wins, 4 defeats for Steven Gerrard. He's taken a bit of time. He's taken a bit of stick when he celebrated on December 29th at Celtic Park with that 2-1 win. He was staring into the Sky Sports camera, and obviously the emotion got the better of him. He was screaming as if, for many people it was that feeling as if Rangers were on their way to winning the title, and then it all collapsed suddenly. I think what has changed this year about Steven Gerrard is there's been a real dose of humility, a change in his attitude, and he wants to try and, I think he's matured and looked at the way he was as a player and carried that off into to management, and just basically said, look, nothing is won until it's won.
Absolutely. I forgive him. I think it's just people rightly. We talk about this game and we know there's more important things in life, but surely the whole lifeblood of football, Peter's passion, the passion that we hold for it. So I'm very sort of forgiving of his reaction last year. I think it was. At worst, it was a bit naive, but it was the reaction of somebody who's been under a lot of pressure, had seemed to think that is the tide turn. It seemed at the time to be a big result. It ended up it wasn't, because of what happened after January. But yeah, I think there's been a deepening of things on what people call the journey. People, I think if you talk to most managers, most footballers, most elite sportsmen or women, they'll tell you that they learn more by defeats. They may learn more by hardship. They learn more by coming up short than they ever did by winning, because they learn what they've got to tweak and what they've got to look out for, what they've got to change, how they've got to get tougher. This is a huge test for them today going into this game, because this could be, and I don't tend to overplay things. I think they'll agree, but I think if they win the day, that's the league decider, Peter. So this is a huge game, and the pressure will be on today, and I think that's why he's been very, very strong pre-match all the time about talking about how good they've been since the defeat to St Mirren, and he's right in that, and talking up this mental strength that he thinks his side has now.
Yeah, well, you've got every pundit and their granny talking about the fact that he must win silverware. He's got to win something for his own CV. He's got to win silverware to convince the Rangers fans. But in this season of all seasons, I think the only thing that is acceptable is winning the league, stopping 10 in a row. Celtic have been dominant throughout that 9 years, regardless of whether you think Rangers were at full strength or not. Celtic have been dominant. They've had a quadruple treble, Darren. They've had it all their own way, and suddenly now they are the chasing side in this campaign. And if you look at this game today, to go 19 points clear, Darren, you have to look and say to yourself, well, who are the match winners in each team? I look at Rangers and I just think Roof has given them something different from what Morelos offered. And, he scored for me one of the best European goals of this season, and it wasn't a fluke. Yeah. It was a guy who had a look up from almost 50 yards and thought, there's the keeper off his line. I think I'm going to chip him. And I think at that moment, people started to look up and think, well, wait a minute. This boy has got something. And for me, Roof is the match winner for Rangers. And on the other side, I look and I say to myself, Edouard for me hasn't really done anything of note this season to help his manager. I think Griffiths is probably the most dangerous one for Celtic.
Yeah, Roof, Peter, as we spoke earlier, and I was a big fan. I watched him for Leeds and all that, and as I say, more of a 10 coming and playing and all that, but he's playing in a different position, and he's adapted, but he's adapted because he's a good player. He's a good footballer, great in the ball, he'll create goals, and he will score goals, and he's actually probably scored more goals than I think he would have, because he's one of those players who likes to take part in the game, no just like Morelos just likes playing along the line and wee balls down the side, and getting strikes in and getting attempts on goal, where he likes to be part of the game, Roof. And he's definitely, I would think Rangers, he scored more goals than what they probably expected of him, but that's a good thing. At the other end, Peter, I see where you're coming from with Edouard, but the boy can just produce in an instant. He's got so much ability. This game, now we've said on the show before about players not playing for Lenny and all that, and was he one of them? But this game they'll be up for there's no doubt they'll be up for this game. You saw their celebration after the cup final. When Hugh was talking earlier, I think the Celtic players need to go out, Peter. Now I think there's Laxalt, Sorrell, Turnbull, probably Frimpong to an extent, with a confidence, with their chests out, that we've won the last 12 trophies. We are the team that have won a quadruple treble. They have to have confidence and go out not thinking we're 16 points behind. They need to go out and show that confidence. And I think with the two strikers up front, I would say Roof is the biggest threat, but I've got to say that both of them, Edouard and Griffiths, is a massive threat.
Well, Hugh McDonald, there's no doubt that Edouard has the quality. There's no doubt he's got the ability to do something unbelievably special. But for me, he owes the manager one.
Yeah, and he really owes himself as well. He owes himself to get to be back at the forefront of Scottish football. He's an excellent player. Let's not kid ourselves on here. Let's look at the people that he's been mentioned in dispatches with. There's AC Milan and Juventus are both nibbling about him. Arsenal are very keen, particularly if Lacazette goes. So this is a guy that's going to play in one of the big leagues, and he's going to play at the top end in one of the big leagues. So he's a good player. I've watched him very, very closely this season, Peter, because I'm a great admirer of his skill, and I think we talked back, even in the dog days of October when Celtic were struggling, and I said key to it all was if Edouard turns up, he's just key to everything that Celtic can do. I've watched signs in the last few games of him being slight, I think Celtic fans, for example, can have hopes that he's coming back to his best. There was a couple of runs against Hamilton, particularly,
Yeah.
that stuff that Darren he does inside the box with
Yeah.
those, the very quick feet. The finishes weren't good. He put one over the bar. The goalkeeper saved another one. Similar against Dundee United. I thought, oh, that's a bit more like him. I think what's key to Celtic as well, Peter, today is that in a lot of the performances this year where the fans have, and I think rightly, berated the team, there's been a lack of what's best called energy or pace in the team. I think what Neil Lennon has gone for today is real energy in the team. Laxall, for example, over Taylor would seem to be energy. The idea of playing Ayer maybe at right back, he's gone for Frimpong, who gives you an energy. Sorrell over Brown. I think the big thing that maybe Scott Brown's been dropped for is that he would, I think, reasonably be accused of maybe slowing the play down. Sometimes that's a very, very good thing. So Celtic, I think, have gone for real energy this afternoon, and I think it's a real team. I think it's that great tabloid thing, Peter, that we alluded to earlier. I mean, I think it's a winner bust team.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would like to thank thousands upon thousands of people for their messages on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter as well. Lots of predictions, lots of, as you would imagine, banter on a day like today for Rangers against Celtic. Thanks to Jamie Higgins, who says, ask Gabriel if he's cold, Peter. I feel really sorry for him. Well, listen, don't worry about Gabriel being out in the cold. My God, I mean, honestly, he'll have the long johns on, he'll have his tracky bottoms on, he'll have a scarf, he's got his ice station zebra jacket on, and to be fairly honest with you, I have no sympathy for you, Gabriel. You're just over 20 years of age. These are the best years of your life. Who cares about the cold?
Yeah, I know. I'll tell you this right now. I would take the freezing cold and the sun every day over the standard Glaswegian rain. But you boys back at home will know I don't usually wear socks. I've got socks on today. It is absolutely freezing.
It's cold.
6 or 7 games. 6 or 7 games off across the country. I saw that on the way here and I thought, that's it. I'm putting socks on. This is enough. But yeah, it is freezing cold here. We've just seen everyone has arrived now at Ibrox Park. Interesting you talking about the midfield energy there, Hugh. I think that's where the game will be won and lost in the midfield. The energy that they do bring, Sorrow, Turnbull, we know Ryan Christie and Callum McGregor are two of the fittest players in the country for the national team as well. I think there'll be such an interesting battle because Stephen Davis will be controlling the Rangers midfield in his different kind of style. He's not as energy driven, but we know that he can just control games with his passing and his movement. It is interesting as well. You look at the Celtic front two, Odsonne Edouard. You talk about him having to repay the fans, repay the manager. I think he has started to do that. He had a very slow start to the season, but in his last 10 games, he scored 6 goals. And it goes back to what Hugh said as well. When Edouard plays, Celtic play. 6 in his last 10, 6 wins on the bounce. I think he is getting back to his best, but whether he delivers today, we'll have to wait and see. He usually does in the big games, in the Old Firms, in the Cup finals. But just going a quick look at the bookies, they don't fancy Celtic. They're 12-5, whereas Rangers are favourites at evens.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, Gabriel. I was just about to ask you about where all the money is going, and no surprise that it's going on Rangers because of their form, because of what they're doing in the league. They are so far ahead at the moment. Can Celtic peg them back? Only time will tell on that. Darren Jackson, Hugh McDonald and Gabriel Antoniazzi are here with me. If you have just joined us, thank you very much for joining us on Facebook, YouTube and Twitter as well. Peter and Roughie's football show back bigger and better in 2021. Hopefully you can join the football family, the thousands of people who've been subscribing, like, share and following us. We are truly grateful to you for joining us to talk football. If you are a football fan, then we wish you a happy new year. Even if you're not a football fan, we wish you a happy new year as well. I know some people get slightly sensitive about that these days. But the other point that I think it's good to reflect on, if you missed the start of the programme, we were looking back on the tragedy 50 years ago, the 2nd of January 1971. We do indeed pay our respects to the 66 fans who sadly lost their life on Stairway 13 with the crush that ensued on that very cold and misty day at Ibrox. 66 fans going to watch an Old Firm derby and they never returned to their families. It is an absolute tragedy, one of the biggest in Scottish football. 140 people were injured as well, let's not forget. Some people just so happy that they were able to go back to their families, because there are many stories that you've probably read across the newspapers and of course on all platforms of broadcasting about people who were just so grateful that they were able to live through the pain of that tragedy. And with that in mind, as ever on our football show, we like to reflect on some other people who are no longer with us that we didn't get the chance to pay our respects to because, of course, we had a little break for the festive period. First of all, Phil O'Donnell, who was a former Celtic player and Motherwell player. It was a tragedy that day, Motherwell against Dundee United. And I think, looking back on it, all our prayers and thoughts always go to the O'Donnell family around about the festive period. Darren, you knew Phil well. I knew him well. I had him on the programme I was working at the time. He was a great lad. He had some energy. To lose him at that age was an absolute tragedy.
Heartbreaking, Peter. I was very close with Phil and Eileen and the kids. Obviously, playing with him at Celtic, he was just an absolute wonderful boy. He was. And people say after they were Phil was a wonderful player. I mean, we're talking about midfielders having energy today. Phil had more energy than anybody up and down that pitch. Just got on with his job, never got involved in anything, scored goals, defended. He was an absolute gem. And outside the football, Tommy Johnson and his family, myself and my family and Phil and Eileen and the family, we used to go on holiday together. And he was just an amazing guy, Peter. He was just a top guy.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of my abiding memories of that period when he sadly lost his life was the way Mark McGee, who was the Motherwell manager, conducted not only himself in putting across the perfect message of sympathy and reflection on Phil as a person, but he handled the whole occasion with Motherwell fans, with every fan across Scottish football. And also I'd like to pay tribute to the Hearts Football Club at that time, because obviously with Motherwell, they paid particular tribute to Phil O'Donnell as well, as so many clubs across the world of football did. But it was a tragedy. Phil lost at such a young age. And a couple of men that I'm going to mention now that had a rich and a full life, and they have indeed put their mark on Scottish football. One of them, of course, was Jim McLean, who sadly passed away at 83 years of age. Jim McLean, to win the title with Dundee United Hugh in 1983 is just an achievement with a group that I think 20 players all contributed to it. Some people used to say it was 14, but I think they were basically maybe over embellishing it. But 20 players overall. But he had a core of maybe 13 or 14 at Dundee United who played week in, week out.
Yeah, and what a manager! What a manager! One of the testimonies to him, Peter, was I've lost track of the days this week, but on the morning after Jim's passing, Alec Ferguson phoned me to say I want something out there. I want to make my tribute to Jim public, to be broadcast on Press Association on BBC, etc., etc. And I said to him, well, what is the main thing you want to say? And right away he said, this was my toughest adversary in the dugout. People talk about Rafa Benitez, Jose Mourinho, Arsene Wenger. He said, but no, Jim McLean was the toughest adversary I faced in a dugout. The best coach, the best man at improving players. He said, and this is coming from man. I think a couple of European Cups and 13 championships in England. He said he was the best at looking at a game. He said Jim was the best manager of a game. He could look at a game and he could see how it was being played out, and he could immediately on the touchline decide how he had to change it. And he gave a great line as well, Peter. He says, yes, he could be a bit spiky, he said, but at the bottom of it all, Jim McLean, he said, was a good man. He was a helpful man. He said, he always helped me as a young manager. And it's amazing when you think of it. He said, when Alec was 22, 23, he was taking his badges very early. Jim, of course, would be 4 or 5 years older. And they met at Largs, and they shared a room at Largs training. Isn't that what a room that would have been to have been a fly in the wall in, Peter, isn't it? I mean, if you look at if we talk about real football history, Peter, that room at Largs should have a plaque on it. Somebody should find it and say, this is where Alec Ferguson and Jim McLean talked about football in 1964. And he told one last story, Peter, which gives you a measure of what Scottish football was like then. They used to Fergie, the United and Aberdeen used to share the cost of a four-seater plane to go and watch games in Holland or Belgium, whatever, and it'd be Archie and Archie Knox and Alec and Walter Smith and Jim would be flying to Holland, and they would at the airport they'd go and get different taxis, and they wouldn't tell each other what game they were going to, and after the game, they wouldn't tell each other what game they'd been at. He says, Alex said, Jim McLean was always wanting to know, and he would ask Fergie, well, what was the score of the game? Kind of a wee fly question, what was your game like? What was the score? And Alec would always say, oh, we left before the end, so we don't know the score. So everything was a secret. But I always think about, I'm sorry I'm going to be a bit long here, but he is such a legend. I always think, see about Jim McLean and football managers, I always think the measure of a football manager is to outperform budget, to outperform history. Now, there is a case for saying, especially when Jim McLean took over at Dundee United, that they weren't the biggest team on the street, right? They weren't the biggest team on the street, and they ended up being one of the top teams in Europe. That's an astonishing achievement, Peter. Absolutely, and I'll never see the likes of it again.
Yeah,
Peter.
well, I've offered I was going to say, Darren, I've offered my own reflection on Jim McLean, but I think there's none better to give us an insight into Jim McLean than Darren Jackson, because you played for the great man.
3.5 years. Actually, he spent, what was it, 200,000 on me, and I broke my ankle in my debut against Celtic. So, but one of the best. I mean, Peter, Jim was so far ahead of his time. You talk about sprint training and all that now. Back in '88, you had internationalists going down to Glenrothes to shoot hog on a Tuesday night and a Thursday night for sprint training. He'd have Duke Houston up the stand doing stats. Everyone talks. People are mad on stats now. Mm-hmm. That was in 1988. Duke would come up to you after the game. You're playing as a striker. How many times you held it in? How many times you linked to play? How many times you got a shot on target and all that? That was in 1988. So far ahead of his time. But just a little story. I drove up from Newcastle to Dundee with my wife. We went in his office and we were discussing terms. And his secretary came in and said, Mr. McLean, Darren's mother-in-law's on the phone. And I kind of looked at Pamela and strange, and Jim went, can you just tell Bill McMurdo that Darren's busy? And it was wee Bill McMurdo trying to hold me. I mean, he was so far ahead of his time. Tactics and all that, and just what he did, his training and all that. And listen, he was mad as well, and he probably upset an awful lot of people, players and all that, put them through a little bit of hell. But you take people how they did for you, and there's no doubt he made me a better player. Now people will say absolutely, whether that's good or whether that's bad, but there's no doubt he made me a better player, and I can't thank him enough for that.
Yeah, I think it's a lovely tribute from you, Darren, because obviously to see him firsthand, and Hugh has paid his own tribute as well. This is a man who won the title with Dundee United against, a Celtic side and an Aberdeen side, and to a lesser degree in '83 a Rangers side, all capable of producing good teams. But again, our thoughts and prayers and condolences to his family at this sad time. Just one little footnote. Again, I think it's worthy of recognition is the sad passing of Tommy Docherty. Tommy Docherty was the Scotland manager. He says his biggest regret was not hanging in there longer. But the lure of Manchester United was too great for him. Tommy Docherty, the player, obviously regrets as far as he is concerned in leaving Celtic too early. He wanted to stay there longer to try and maybe make a name for himself, and he went on to play for Preston North End. But as a manager, his ultimate high was Manchester United and winning the FA Cup with them, defeating Liverpool by 2-1. And as a rack-on tour, I have to tell you, on the after-dinner circuit, there's very few that could actually match him for some fantastic stories. We don't have time to go back over them. All I would say to you is our thoughts, prayers and condolences to the Docherty family on the dock. We will actually reflect on all of the aforementioned players and managers in greater detail later on this week when we're back on a full-time basis. All that I'm going to say to you before we get the predictions, we're going to go back to Ibrox. Gabriel will give us the teams once again, and of course then maybe we will squeeze out of our rather cold Gabriel Antoniazzi his prediction for this game.
Yeah, just to go over the teams again, we'll start with the home side. It's Alan McGregor in goal, captain James Tavernier, the top goal scorer in the league at right back. Centre half, it's Connor Goldson. He scored twice in the last Old Firm back in October. Liam Balogun is preferred ahead of Felipe Helander to partner him with it's Borna Barisic, the left-footed Croatian, on the left-hand side of defence. In midfield, it's a three of Stephen Davis, the veteran who's played in many of these games before, Joe Aribo, and also Glenn Kamara, one of the standouts so far this campaign in Scotland. Up front, it's Alfredo Morelos. No goals in 13 Old Firm matches for him. He'll be looking to break the duck today. We've got Kemar Roof on the right-hand side and Ryan Kent on the left. Only scored one in his last 21 games in all competitions, but he has scored twice against the Hoops before. Going over to the other side of Glasgow, it's a bold team selection from Neil Lennon. The headline is there's no captain, Scott Brown. We'll start at the back though. It's Vasilis Barkas, the £5 million signing in the summer. He starts in the sticks. Right back, Jeremy Frimpong. Inside of him, Christopher Ayer, partnered by Nir Beaton, who is preferred ahead of Shane Duffy in the absence of Christopher Julien, with Diogo Lexalt at left back. Sorrow will start at the base of the Celtic diamond. He started 5 of the last 6. All of them have been victories. Either side of him are Callum McGregor, who'll captain the side, and Ryan Christie. David Turnbull, 3 goals in 3 matches for him, plays number 10, with Odsonne Edouard and Lee Griffiths up top. You've asked me for a prediction. Well, here it comes. The games between the two sides are quite often tight, especially since Steven Gerrard has come in. We know Rangers are so impressive at the back. And I know that the three of you think it's win or bust for Celtic. And I did speak to Neil Lennon, Callum McGregor and Ryan Christie on Wednesday. And they were all saying it's not lose. I think that Celtic, deep down, would perhaps take a draw. And so would Rangers. I know both sides would want to win for either reason. But I'm going for 1-1.
Well, there you are. Not only does he have socks on, he's got scalps on his backside as well. That's magnificent. But I have to say to you, Gabriel, 1-1 is a prediction. Nonetheless, it is a prediction. Maybe not the one that Rangers or Celtic fans want to hear, but before I get Hugh and Darren's prediction on it, I'm going to fire mine in just to try and throw a rocket up these two to see if they change their mind on it. But right now I'm going to go Rangers 2, Celtic 1. I can't see anything other than a Rangers win. I see Rangers going 19 points clear and winning the league. I think it's over before this game. I don't know what the future holds for Neil Lennon if he doesn't get a win in this game. A draw is only a stay of execution in my mind. I think Celtic have been negligent, certainly at boardroom level as far as what they should have done this season. They made a lot of poor signings. The manager has been let down by a number of players earlier on in the season, and now he's facing what I think is the make or break game here at Ibrox for not only Celtic's title ambitions, but it could be for his position as manager. For me, Rangers under Steven Gerrard deserve tremendous credit. I think they played superbly well. They're well organised. They've had some fantastic results in Europe, and they're 16 points clear, and I can't see them getting anything other than a win here at Ibrox today. Rangers 2, Celtic 1, Hugh McDonald.
Well, after the the brickbats thrown at poor old Gabs, I was going to go for one each as well. But I know you, Peter, are not a keen man on draws. This is where I'll go then. I'll go that I'll sway it and say that Celtic will win 2-1. And my only reason for that, because it's not based on much logic, is that I don't think there's that much between the teams. I really don't. I mean, I know Celtic have had a really tough time. I think Celtic have picked a team with energy today. And I think that Celtic might just win because they have to win. I think that might be it. I think midfield will be central. I think players like Turnbull and Sorrell making their entree onto the big stage. It'll be crucial how they play today. Edward and Griffiths up front. I think Celtic have to score to get anything today, Peter, because I don't see them coming up with a clean sheet. So I'll stick my neck out and go Rangers 1, Celtic 2.
Darren Jackson. I've seen that before.
I'm actually going to go with you, Peter, because, listen, I think Rangers will score. I don't think there's any doubt Rangers will score, because I think we've spoke about Roof, the delivery from the wide areas. I do think Rangers will score. But I think where in Celtic I'll have worked on trying to stop deliveries into the box. But I think one of the big ones position is Steve Davis, who I've been a huge fan of, Peter, through his career. I think he's been a wonderful player. He wouldn't have played today if Jack or Arfield had been fit, because I just don't think he can get about the pitch as much as he could. And I think playing David Turnbull on him, I think to play off him and going into areas and all that, and take using his energy, as we spoke about earlier, using his energy to get about the pitch, I think that's a major plus for Celtic. And I just think the two strikers, having those two players on the pitch, must give you confidence. And so I'm going for 2-1 Celtic.
Okay, we've all given our prediction. Thank you to the thousands who've offered their predictions on it. Some of them have gone for 5-1 hammerings for either side. You know, the joy of living in the madness that is the West of Scotland. I love it. Everybody goes crazy for this game. It's an absolute joy. The one thing I would say is enjoy the game. Don't lose the heat. Don't smash some of the new ornaments you got for Christmas, and show a bit of respect. Gabriel and myself will be back after the full-time whistle to bring you our immediate reaction to that game. Who's going to be the happier manager? Will it be Steven Gerrard or Neil Lennon? Only time will tell. Join us if you can, live on Twitter, on Facebook, and on YouTube right after the Old Firm game finishes, and we'll give you our thoughts on that. I think Rangers will win. Darren and Hugh have gone for a Celtic win. Gabriel's gone for a draw. It's all about opinions. But on this day of all days, the 2nd of January 2021, we wish you a happy new year, each and every one of you who followed us on the programme. Stick with us for this year, and hopefully things will get better medically, as well as in our prosperous, hopefully, lifestyles. Enjoy the game today, but spare a thought for 66 people in 1971 who headed out to an Old Firm game and didn't return to their families. Football is just a game. It's just a sport. It's not more important than life or death. Let's enjoy it. Let's keep the heat. And then we'll speak to you after the game. From Darren, from Hugh, from Gabriel at Ibrox, and from myself, Peter Martin. Thanks for watching.